As the last decade of the 20th century began, oil, politics and war reached another nexus. In 1990, Iraq's dictator Saddam Hussein invaded neighboring Kuwait, a fellow OPEC member and oil producer, threatening the stability of global oil supply.
Worried that Saudi Arabia's oil fields could be next, America came good on its USS Quincy agreement and joined forces with dozens of other countries to expel Iraq and end the threat. In the years that followed Saddam's defeat in 1991, oil prices sank to less than $10 a barrel.
Cheap energy underpinned the optimism of the 1990s, an era of globalization and rapid economic growth around the world, except in countries heavily reliant on oil sales, such as those in the Middle East, where cheap oil meant economic stagnation.
But in the following decade, cheap energy no longer seemed abundant. The war in Iraq in 2003 threatened world oil supply, catalyzing a 5-year upward spiral in oil prices. As supply dried up, consumption was growing in China and other fast-growing energy consumers across Asia, and fears that supply could not keep up with soaring demand gripped the market.
By mid-2008, oil prices had reached nearly $150 a barrel, an 8-fold increase from the average price of a decade earlier.
High oil prices deepened the scars of a brutal recession, shifting billions of dollars out of Western economies and enriching oil producers. The boot was on the other foot again. Rulers of oil-rich nations, like Venezuela's Hugo Chavez and Russia's Vladimir Putin, used high petroleum prices to entrench their power and impose onerous new terms on Western companies operating in their countries.
Oil money was coursing through the Middle East again too, enriching the nation's elites. Just as Western economies began to climb out of recession, unrest in the Arab world in 2011 struck supplies again. War in Libya, a large producer, threatened another spike in oil prices. War in 2013 in Syria, though not itself a big producer, did the same, causing fears of a wider conflict in the world's most important oil-producing region.
But more than 150 years after Colonel Drake made his find, there are signs of another shift in the great global story of oil. High prices have made so-called unconventional oil and gas economically viable, resources trapped in reservoirs once too expensive to produce. Another wave of supply has emerged. America is leading this renaissance and may soon reclaim its place as the world's biggest oil producer.
And as the US grows more self-reliant in energy, new trading patterns are arising. China is now Saudi Arabia's biggest oil consumer. Its role in the Middle East may grow as America's fades. New alliances and new geopolitics will spring from the shift.
But oil's seminal position in world politics and its decisive role in shaping the fortunes of nations will not.